please stand to honor him. Sam Weaver completed a stellar career at Collinsville High School in 1926. In high school, he competed in football, baseball, and track. His football talents earned him a grant in aid at the University of Alabama. In those days, freshmen were not allowed to play varsity ball. However, Weaver caught the eye of the coaches during that freshman year by his hard-hitting abilities from the defensive end position. The freshman team went undefeated. As a varsity player, Weaver routinely took on 2 blockers, which allowed teammates to blast untouched into the opponent's backfield. Weaver played in the first game in Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. He also played in the first game at Legion Field in Birmingham. He played for the first Bear, the legendary Wallace Bear Wade. His 1931 team played in the Rose Bowl. One of Weaver's biggest disappointments was not being able to play in that game because of a hip injury and pneumonia. Upon graduation, Sam became a successful businessman and leader in his church and his community. Accepting today on his behalf is going to be Roy Weaver and Sam Weaver, his grandsons. So would you join me in welcoming into the DeKalb County Sports Hall of Fame, Mr. Samuel Weaver.
Well, my name is Roy Weaver, and Sam Weaver was my grandfather. And on behalf of our family, we'd like to thank the DeKalb County Sports Hall of Fame for this honor today to inducting him into the Sports Hall of Fame here. We all know how much it would really mean to him if he were here with us today. It's truly an honor to be here, so we do appreciate that. You know, I remember my grandfather telling a lot of stories about Alabama football, and some that Jeff's already talked about, and some things that came up and things that happened along the way. Some disappointments and some great times. But he always said that playing football at Alabama meant more than anything else that he had ever done. That he got more out of that experience just for life lessons, and he carried that with him for the rest of his life. As Jeff said, he played for Coach Johnny Mack Brown and also Coach Wallace Wade. You know, back in those days, football was a lot different. He was about 6'1", around 200 pounds, and back then that was really big. Where now it's not that big, but it was, and they were very, very tough. In fact, back then all they had for helmets was a piece of sponge rubber with a piece of leather that they could wear. Wearing it was optional. He said he never did ever wear one because all it did, it would keep from getting your ears torn off. And he just thought it was just useless to do that. So, you know, while I never had the opportunity to watch him play when I was growing up, as a young boy I was blessed. I was blessed to hear stories about his career and sit on the front porch of our lake house in Guntersville and listen to him and his longtime friend and teammate, Fred Simpkins Sr., talk about playing and some of the trips they made and some of the things that they did. And they also talked about how tough Coach Wade was. But even though he was tough, they talked about how much respect that the whole team had for him. In fact, they told a story one time that Coach Wade was called off the field one day to go in the field house to take a phone call. He told them, he said, y'all keep practicing. I don't care what happens, y'all keep practicing. I'm going to go in here. Well, it got so dark that they couldn't see the practice anymore, and finally one of the assistants went inside. Coach Wade had forgotten all about him and had gone home and had forgotten all about him. So the assistant coach didn't dare tell him to stop. So he made a phone call to him to ask if it was okay for him to quit. So they called him the day after that. But I tell you, that's a lot of respect for a coach that players had for him. And I also heard about the long train line rides that they would take. The longest one that they took was to Madison, Wisconsin. It took them a week to get there. You know, nowadays, in college, they fly them on not private jets, but charter jets if they're going there. It takes them just a few hours. Back then, it used to take them a solid week to get to where they were going, and then they would have to play and go up there and play in the snow, and lot of difference. Now they play in covered domes and all sorts of stuff. But also, as Jeff had mentioned, probably one of the most disappointing things in his career, it was the most disappointing thing with his career, was when he did have to miss that Rose Bowl trip. But you know, he didn't blame anybody for that but himself. He said if he'd have listened to his coach, he never would have left the side unprotected and had his hip injury. So that was one of his lifelong lessons that he shared with me, that you know, you need to pay attention to when coaches are telling you things. They're not telling you just because they want to hear themselves talk. They're telling their players to coach you and to teach you so that you know and to keep yourself protected and to help you later on in life. One of the greatest things that I've learned from my grandfather along the way through his being able to spend time with him, and one of the greatest lessons that he said that he learned from playing football at Alabama, was that he always said that every bump and bruise that he had meant something. And he said that no matter what, when you get knocked down, you always have to get back up and start over again. And you know, even when things would get tough for him, and a lot of those times came, he lived that principle every day of his life. And he instilled that in myself, and I know my brother and my sister and the other folks that were around him. He always believed in giving back to others. He was fortunate when he was growing up and coming along that folks would help him. And he always believed in helping other people. And one of the most gratifying things that he could do was to help someone and no one ever know that he was the one that had done that. So that was one of the most gratifying things that he could do. The man that my sister, brother, and I knew as Buddy showed his love for the Lord, his wife Janie, his two daughters Ann and Snooky, and for us through his kindness, generosity, and character that has had an everlasting impact on our lives. Again, thank you for honoring him here today. We really do appreciate it. And I think my brother's going to stand up and say a few words here. Thank you.
Well, it's always kind of hard to follow your older brother, but I guess I lucked out because I was named after my grandfather, so I had a good name to follow. But as Coach Ellis said, you know, it's hard to be first because your knees are knocking. You ought to be last when you can hear everybody's stomach growling. So I'll be short and everything, so I'll go ahead and go. What I first want to say is, I'm sure one thing my grandfather would say, he would be very honored to be up here with you guys, three of you. So, you know, congratulations. You know, what I look back when my grandfather, when I was a kid and played football, from Pee Wee football a year round at Gaston High, my brother played the same. You would be sitting there, he was at every football game. You know, it was kind of remarkable that he was always up in the stands. And then at practice, sometimes you'd look over in the distance, and there'd be somebody leaning against the fence, and it'd be your grandfather. Wouldn't say anything until later on that night. And just say, hey, you know, get up. The kid knocked you on your butt. Get up, and, you know, you'll learn a little better. He was, a man of not many words. That's one thing. But when he said words, he was sincere. And I'm sure if he was here today, he would say, thank you for the University of Alabama for everything that it gave back. And more importantly, thank you for Collinsville, Alabama. That's where it all began and built a foundation that his life was built on. And just thank you so much for honoring me. Thank you.
If you would, give a round of applause again to all our inductees.